All right, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of Schmovie. This is episode number 303, also known as a palindrome.
Also, another area code. You guys got any guess about which what location?
Ohio. Somewhere in Ohio.
Ronald, want to guess?
No.
You don't want to guess?
Delaware.
He does not want to guess.
No, 302 was Delaware. That was last time. This is Denver, Colorado.
Damn. Missed it by this much, that much. Yeah, welcome to a new episode. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm here as always with...
I'm Ron.
And I'm John.
And you were both correct. Those are your proper names. And it's good to see you guys again. Back for another week of conversations. Today's episode, mainly we're going to be talking about and reviewing the new Conjuring-verse release, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, the third Conjuring film. And either the 7th or 8th Conjuring-verse movie, depending on who you ask or where you read it. But we'll talk about that, which came out last week in theaters and on HBO MAX. Before we get to the main review, though, what happened between last week and right now that you guys want to talk about? News, trailers, anything of that sort?
New Space Jam trailer.
Yeah, saw that.
I mean, I'm excited.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are happening for me. So this first Space Jam obviously was not the best film, but it really was a pretty coherent story. Like it got a little wacky, but it was coherent. This looks like three Space Jam movies in one. This legitimately looks it looks like Space Jam 2, 3, and 4. And they just jam them into one movie, and it's really hard to understand what's happening.
You saying they space jammed them into one movie?
That's what they did.
Jammed them into three. I mean, into one.
It's even more high concept than what Space Jam was,
which is crazy.
I mean? Which is which is like insane that you're mixing tunes with basketball stars, real life with fictional world. You got like tech in it now because of obviously of where we are and what we do and where we live. But I mean, like, I don't know. The trailer is all over the place. I mean, obviously I want to see it. And, I think LeBron's really pretty good in everything he's been in movie wise. So it's kind of exciting to see him kind of starring in something. I think he's probably got a lot more going in that realm than Jordan ever did. So I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to see it, but the trailer, the idea, the movie just is really pretty convoluted, it seems, but I don't know. We'll see. It's Space Jam.
It's bonkers.
So I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else? Any other? I feel like I saw a trailer. Anything else that you guys saw? There was one that I saw yesterday that I was going to mention to you. John, you got anything?
Is the Soderbergh trailer? Is that new?
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
No Sudden Move. Yeah, that's the one I saw.
With Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, and You Already Have Me with those three names associated with
it. Just stop it right there. Yeah, you got John Hamm. I mean, it's a huge cast. Everybody lines up to work with Soderbergh, it seems, especially with this kind of... This looks really good. The trailer looked great for this. This debuts, I think, this week at Tribeca, which we're going to be going over next week. We did get some access to the portion of that festival that's going to be like the at-home portion. So we'll be talking about what we're able to see next week. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to see No Sudden Move, but excited to see that when it hits HBO Max, right? That's an HBO Max movie?
Yeah. It looks like it, yeah.
What does that mean, Ronald? What does that mean? It looks like it. You mean just because it had the logo, or are you saying it looks like an HBO Max movie?
The brand, no. The branding of how they present the stuff sometimes. Like I thought it was
Max
an HBO
Originals.
Yeah, is it a Max? Or I didn't see Max Originals, but then sometimes that could be HBO Max thing they just haven't stamped in that trailer. So I'm not saying it looks HBO Max. That's not a shitting on it sort of thing. Like I actually. It looks exciting, man. I really like what Don Cheadle's doing, what Benicio del Toro's doing. And I think that maybe the key to getting John Hamm in a movie that works is just taking him back in time when like racism was just on television all the time. Like it's just, that seems to be the way. Like when it was just like blatant racism, he seems to shine in that time frame. So
yeah.
That's something he says. He's got his agents like look, and Could you give me anything in the age of racism?
Yeah, yes.
And or digitize me and put me in Space Jam.
Yeah, put me in Space Jam, please.
He's in that too.
Yep.
He's very there's a spectrum and he's on both sides of it.
That very visceral racism, that version of racism.
It gets to the heart of Don Draper, his performance on that show as a kind of a cipher. I mean, what made that guy so interesting was how much he was like the facade of the guy you all want to be, but then that there's no real there was kind of a subtext to that show. And I think John Hamm, I love John Hamm, I'm not knocking him, but isn't he he's an interesting actor in the sense that he doesn't really have a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like you can say Don Draper, but I think the smoothness, the slickness, the mythology of that only means something to people who were following that show during that time. I mean, there's people who might recognize him for different things he's done, but it's interesting that sort of he's in that spot of kind of, I think everybody sort of loves him, but he doesn't really have, I mean, again, Don Draper's a pretty big thing to hang your career on. I'm not saying that, but that performance is not a real showy performance. So it's just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's not like James Gandolfini, where every time you see him, you're thinking, "Oh, that guy can't not be Tony Soprano." Don Draper's so blank that, in a weird way, John Hamm is this kind of blank person in a way. And I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It's hard to picture what kind of role or what kind of movie he would carry, where he would be the focus of it. He seems like he's a great supporting player in all these roles. But I don't know. There's just something I was thinking about with him. I love him to death, but I don't really know what his wheelhouse is.
It's a little hard to tell, man, honestly. Very, very
the other
confusing.
the other one I was going to mention was the trailer was just came out today when we were recording this. It's that The Eyes of Tammy Faye trailer. Did you guys watch that?
Yeah, I watched that. That looks crazy.
Michael Showalter's new movie. Yeah, I mean, Jessica Chastain is like top 3 for me. Like, I love everything she's in for the most part, or at least her in most of the stuff she's in. It looks crazy. I mean, I'm very interested in seeing this movie, but I feel like there's multiple pieces in this trailer where it's like, I don't know that the makeup and like the way they have her set up as Tammy Faye through her life looks very good. I mean,
it's the makeup.
It almost looks like undone or something. But I mean, I have the reference of like how kind of loud Tammy Faye Baker was, and they're kind of like obviously playing that up.
But the cheekbone, the face just looks like you're going to be looking at a prosthetic person when you don't need to,
Right.
I'm a big proponent of just letting actors act and not pile makeup on their face when you don't have to. So it's sort of like, I guess if we insist upon Tammy Faye looking like Tammy Faye, then maybe cast someone who looks more like Tammy Faye. But if we're going to say, look at how Jessica Chastain can transform herself, maybe don't make her look like a Dark Crystal character. Just let her act. But I think the trailer has like a fun kind of funky rhythm to it, and it reminds me of like Ed Wood or something like that, where there's a kind of real world component, but it can be a bit heightened. And I didn't even know it's a Michael Showalter thing, so that kind of makes sense that it could have this sort of comic energy to it, perhaps. So but that almost could be a tonal inconsistency that we're talking about that the movie will have to figure out, but the trailer is just interesting and weird. and
for sure.
The makeup did bump me for sure. I did sort of worry by the time it got to the end of the trailer. I was like, or maybe not. I started off kind of high on it, and then by the time it got to the end, I was thinking this might be one of those, like, I'm trying to think of the bad makeup jobs of recent days, but like wasn't like Leonardo DiCaprio's makeup in Hoover bad, or am I remembering that?
Not good. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like there was some other recent movie where the makeup sort of just didn't carry it, and it was just unavoidable. But I'm spacing on it right now. So
yeah,
but it's always a risky move, I think, to pile the actor under all that latex.
It is, man. It is. We'll see what happens, man. Maybe it'll look better in motion. Like we're watching it I don't think so though. I think you guys are right.
We'll know in September when it comes out.
Yeah.
What else? Any other news before I don't really feel like there was a lot of big stuff over the last week.
I don't
Any
think
big
so
news
either.
items?
Netflix announced this Mike Myers project that sounds pretty darn interesting. Did you read about that?
Yeah, the comedy series.
It's like Mike Myers is doing a comedy series with Netflix where he's going to play like 7 different roles, and it sounds like a good storyline for him. I mean, it sounds like if you're gonna look forward to him doing something, this is the kind of thing that he has done well with in the past, where it's like going into characters and it's kind of a Peter Sellers thing. So, like to me, he's one of those people that I could totally believe would have a comeback just as easily as he would have another Love Guru or something like that. So you just don't know what side of the fence it's going to land on. But I was just thinking about him recently, thinking about how like, oh yeah, Mike Myers is one of those people that just, it's been a while since people have seen him at the top of his game. So I'm intrigued by this Netflix idea of giving creators like him an opportunity to kind of do something, a 6-episode series that sounds like it's like a group of like almost like the Illuminati is what it sounds like it's doing a riff on, like these shady people that run the world and make all the decisions that affect things. And
right,
I don't know. And again, it sounds like the kind of thing that could be super fun. And the cast, the other people who've joined on there's some solid names on there, like Keegan Michael Key and Jennifer Saunders, and just people that again could be in something really cool. So
yeah,
that was a big announcement.
It's exciting, man. That's pretty cool.
There was one I was
Steve, you cocked an eyebrow. You don't have much faith in Mike Myers having a comeback?
I mean, obviously, like of the generation, where Mike Myers was like a god to people in, movie and on SNL for a long time, and I loved him, and a lot of the movies he did I loved, but most of the recent stuff he's done, I don't know, it just feels really, it's like that thing where it's like it feels disconnected from now. Like it doesn't feel like, he's adapting or doing anything new. It seems like he's trying to like do something that was funny 20 years ago. Like that game show that he was doing where he was like not Mike Myers, he was like another person hosting a game show.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like it was very, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is weird. I mean, I prove me wrong. Like I will watch it because I do like Mike Myers in general. But yeah, I don't know. He hasn't done anything recently that really has inspired me.
I haven't seen much of the recent stuff. I have to admit, like, I don't even think I saw Love Guru all the way through. So I have to admit, I have the memory.
You're sheltered.
I have the memory of the stuff that put him on the map, and then I have sort of avoided the stuff that I heard wasn't that great. So like, I don't know. I guess I root for people like that. But you're right; it has been a long time. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The other one I was going to mention was them announcing that Blumhouse is doing a Christine remake with Brian Fuller writing and directing it, which just, that sounds great. Like let's look forward to that. And that's like a perfect match for, I don't know, Blumhouse for everybody.
Right. Blumhouse knows how to make a horror movie for the right budget and get it out there. Brian Fuller can do this. And this story seems like it's perfect for him. And everything I read, just the brief thing, he said he's really taking it back to the book. So he's going to do an 80s period piece. It's going to be, again, it just feels like this could be, if you're like wishing Brian Fuller could get that 4th season of Hannibal off the ground, and then you hear he's doing this, you go, oh, this might be a project that will go. I think that's what it is. Brian Fuller's been attached to so many things that either didn't go or that he left the project shortly after they, like I think he was on that Star Trek series, but he left before it came out. And so there's different things that he's one of those people. He's almost as bad as Guillermo del Toro in terms of just you hear him that he's working on something and then you don't ever hear anything else about it. So this sounds like, Blumhouse will make a movie. They will get it in theaters, and he might be perfect for this, writing and directing. I don't think he's directed a movie before, or am I wrong about that?
I don't know. Sure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But yeah, that sounds awesome. Can't wait for that. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to the King Cast, the podcast.
Yeah.
No.
He was a guest on one of the episodes. I can't remember which one. I don't think it was Christine. I think he might have done.
I heard it. I can't remember which one he did either, but he was a good guest on it.
Yeah, but he's like he's a huge Stephen King fan, and I just think after listening to that episode of the one that he did, I think he did Salem's Lot.
Mm-hmm.
But he was talking about, I think Christine Leonard, like as a property that he may be interested in, at least the film adaptation of it. But I don't know. Yeah, I can't wait for that. But yeah, that's the only thing. That's the one I would remember. I was like, we got to mention that on the podcast, but I got nothing else for that. But let's talk about Conjuring.
Boom.
That's what it was. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. The first of the Conjuring films. James Wan is not directing of the true Conjuring line. Michael Chavez, who did the Curse of La Llorona a couple years ago, was kind of given the keys to Conjuring 3 when James Wan dropped out. At one point, he was directing, and he kind of moved on because, Aquaman, I guess, whatever. But I don't know. This is another one of the HBO Max Warner Brothers titles, day and date. Did pretty well opening weekend, considering it seems, I don't know what the metric is for like what's good and not good with these movies that are doing the day and date release. They seem to have so many. Obviously, Godzilla versus Kong, was a bigger release. It's obviously probably a bigger movie in a lot of ways. This coming week we have In the Heights coming out, one in theaters and HBO Max. But this was like, the horror franchise seems like a pretty sure bet, but it beat Quiet Place 2 in its second weekend and was number one movie at the box office while still being available at home, which is I think how we all watched it at home.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the third film in this franchise of the Conjuring universe, directly in that series with the Warrens? The Devil Made Me Do It.
The one thing I'll say that comes to my mind is that this was one of the movies that felt more like a detective story than any of the other ones that we saw prior. I mean, there's always been some level of investigation, but it really felt like this was like gumshoes asking questions, going around in this small town trying to figure out the roots of this thing, which gave it a slower burn, and
a different burn. Like just a different feel.
Yeah. Which I honestly, when it all came to the second and third act, I think I wound up liking it more than I thought. I think I was a little irritated because they weren't getting any answers, but it was because this was kind of a mystery. And then once it unfolded, I was like, oh man, this is really like feeling pretty amazing. I did feel like, with everything that's happening with sound, and you can get a good sound bar, you can get a good TV. The experiences are becoming so unreal at home. Being able to look at like a 4K display or a sharp HD, 1080p screen, being able to see these images almost in the exact same quality that you were going to see it in the movie theater is spoiling the shit out of me, man. Right. I felt really like it felt like a privilege, and in the end, I really do think it added something to the story of this building world of the Conjuring, and I was satisfied, man. Like I have some issues, but as you guys talk out, I think I'll pull them up, but I did enjoy it overall.
What about you, John?
I mean, I think we've kind of touched on so many of the things that I would say about it already. One is just that this is, you referred to as the Conjuring-verse. This is the first Conjuring film, the first proper Conjuring film. If we think of the proper Conjuring films as 1, 2, and 3, and then you think of the Annabelle movies and what's the other one? Was there a Nun movie?
The Nun.
Yeah.
Was it called The Nun?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, but I mean, those movies have felt like offshoots, and they've had like varying qualities to them. But the thrust of the Conjuring-verse would be the Conjuring proper, which is the James Wan imprint. I think did mean a lot to those movies, the first Conjuring and the second Conjuring. That if you're going to have all these offshoots, what's going to make the main Conjuring special? Well, it's going to be about Ed and Lorraine. They're going to be centered in the story, and although in Annabelle Comes Home, they're in it, and their world is all about it, or it's all about their world. So in this sense, it's like this feels like it's the next Ed and Lorraine movie. It doesn't feel as much like what I thought a Conjuring movie was, and I think you kind of alluded to that, Ronald, with you're talking about the tone of it. It is a murder mystery and not a haunting. So they're not in a house with a family that's been experiencing stuff. So it's almost like the scares have to evolve in a different way. And frankly, I didn't find this movie as scary or as like effective to me in terms of the set pieces of the scares as the other ones. And I think that's partially to do with that. It's not like a locked haunted house type environment. It's this mystery that they're traveling around, they're investigating, they're talking to people. but it also felt like it was the first one that, like, even though it's got that thin based on a true story premise, I think the way that these movies are evolving into like the continuing adventures of Ed and Lorraine, the case files of Ed and Lorraine, like this is the one that felt the most like it was taking that thread and saying, this is all about them. And it's taking them outside the scope of what a normal Conjuring movie would be. And in some ways it feels like, I kind of felt like you did, Ronald. Like by the time I got to the end, I was like, it's kind of neat in the Conjuring-verse to have this type of story. It's kind of neat to think they could just make an Ed and Lorraine movie every couple of years and it could be a different kind of mystery. But it did feel like diminishing returns in a sense because I didn't get those scares. And I think I was wondering why. I think the sense of the family in peril in the first and the second Conjuring, that there's a family that's being besieged by some supernatural entity. I think that tension really works for me in a way that the sort of like, I don't know, wrong man maybe going to prison for a murder or whatever might be happening in this story. It's like, I didn't find it as emotionally hooky or as scary or as well made on a cinematic level. And yet it's fine. It's good. It's like, if you just look at it, if this is like the Marvel verse, this is like going to see one of those movies that you're like, no, I'm happy that this is an ongoing cinematic universe. I enjoyed this installment. It is not my favorite Conjuring movie by a mile. So with all that in mind, it's got some strengths to it, and it's got Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, who now know how to play these characters really well. And the fact that the real Ed and Lorraine aren't even people that we should necessarily admire is, to me, a completely separate issue. At this point, they've turned into the heroes at the center of this supernatural franchise. And I like that there's a sort of big budget. We said this about the first one. I like when there's sort of a big budget horror movie that's trying to be mainstream and trying to hit all those notes. So yeah, it's like, it wasn't my favorite, but it didn't kill the franchise for me in any way, really. It just felt like, this one feels a little bit less sure of its tone or of its effect on you or something. But story-wise, it was interesting, and yeah, the characters are intact. So
yeah, I basically agree with both of you guys. I mean, I don't know what more to add. I mean, I do think that, this did feel like probably the least scary of any of the Conjuring-verse movies, like even the bad movies in the franchise, like I don't really particularly like The Nun or even Michael Chavez's The Curse of La Llorona like that much, but I mean, there's some pretty good scare scenes in those movies. But I don't know, it definitely has more of a procedural feel to it. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, I still did enjoy the movie. I still found it entertaining. I still enjoyed. The most enjoyable thing about the movie is honestly like just the two of them again in a movie together.
Yes.
They really do nail the performance of this couple that, has kind of become the center of this franchise. And, just the idea and the care, it seems, that they've kind of given to their performances in all the movies. But in this one especially, it really did feel like you were kind of saying, John, like it's their show, like it's the movie is them, the case that it's kind of transformed into like almost like a case of the week kind of thing, where it's like, oh, this is a pretty wild case, and the case itself is like super interesting. Like,
it is.
I was reading about the real case that it's based on, the Devil Made Me Do It case, and I mean, that's interesting enough. Like, I would like to see like a series or something, like a limited series or something on that case, or on the trial. And all that stuff that happened, because it was pretty interesting. And like some of the the tapes that they play kind of at the end of this of the actual recordings are pretty wild, listening to some of them online. But I think in the end, it's super entertaining. I think they're great in it. There are a couple of really good scenes in the movie. I think the biggest suffer is that like it really never captures how good the opening of the movie is. Like the opening sequence is really the peak of the movie in terms of the horror of it all, because that opening scene is really pretty great, and they're great in it. I mean, everybody involved in it is really great, and selling the relationship between Arnie and David like right off the bat in that little bit of time really does work for the movie, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely something I'd recommend if you like the Conjuring movies. It's definitely not the worst of the franchise. It's probably the weakest of the main Conjuring films. But I think it's still, it kind of sits probably in the middle of the pack for me of the rest of the movies, but it's on HBO Max, and if you have that, that's definitely worth checking out, I think.
I think I just want to call out that aspect for a second, because I didn't know. I'd driven past a couple theaters that were playing it, and I was like, oh man, Conjuring 3. It was on the marquee with Quiet Place 2, and I was like, oh, this is starting to hurt not going to the movies, And then I came home, and you had posted about watching it, like doing an online watch with your friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I didn't even know that was an HBO Max movie. I mean, that was exciting.
Right.
I literally yelled to my wife and son, hey, the new Conjuring movie's on HBO Max. And they were like, cool. And we watched it like on midnight on the next Saturday night. And it was like, or the couple nights later, whenever it was. And it was just like, I don't know, that part was great. And I think that part is awesome and fun. And that's one of the reasons why I keep talking about it as a franchise. It's just like, my wife, who's not even a big horror movie watcher, she likes the Conjuring movies. She knows they're special. She knows they're a little different. And I know there's people that don't like these movies and don't like the style of them. But I think at this point, if you're watching it, you kind of know you're in for this kind of. And there are some, like you mentioned, there are some sequences that work. I do think James Wan, I don't know, some part of me thinks if he had directed this, I would be praising it a little bit more, just because I think his knack for, like, I know people think it's like showiness for showiness sake, but I think the way his camera can guide you through a scene and give you the geography of things, I kind of was missing that at certain parts of this movie. But it's such a different story. It's not about one house like the other movies have been. So who knows? I wonder what caused him. I know that Aquaman is a big reason, but I wonder what the process was like for him deciding to drop out of that, because it kind of felt like these were his movies, so it's a little bit.
Yeah,
I agree. It was definitely a bummer when because initially him doing it was like, oh great, like he's going to stick with this franchise even if he's like becoming this huge director of a $1 billion franchise or a $1 billion movie in Aquaman. It's like, oh, he's going to still do the Conjuring 3, and then it changed. But I don't know. He too has that kind of thing where, like, he's attached to so many things. I think that's just so common across the industry. It's like if you're in demand, it's like, strike while it's hot, whether you're producing, writing, directing, like they're trying to do, and him and like Guillermo, you mentioned, it's just like, just do as much as possible, I guess. But I don't know. I don't even know what he's directing next outside of, he actually has that. Oh, I think that's what he directed. He has that. There's another WB movie that comes out this summer or fall on, I think it's a theatrical HBO Max, that it's called like Malevolent.
Oh
yeah, that sounds familiar.
I think he directed that. I think that's what he I think that's what he did instead of this, because there was like an original thing that he was trying to maybe get off the ground. But I don't know. So hopefully maybe that's good, and that's maybe a little silver lining to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But again, that's on HBO Max, and if you want to check it out at home, it's there waiting for you if you have a subscription there. I think we'd all kind of probably recommend checking it out.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
What else have you guys watched that you want to mention? I know, Ronald, you've seen a couple of things, some new, some old.
Yeah, I wanted to mention an Amazon Prime original called Panic, which is about a small town in Texas that has this underground sort of crowdsourced Hunger Games. I mean, it really is about surviving it, and it's a bunch of cool rules that kind of unfold as the story goes on. But I think the drama of a tween sort of WB or CW sort of show mixed with death, destruction, and sex. And so the kids are like just out of high school, so they're just allowed to have enough sex in the story for it to be like, it's like barely legal, which I'm not a big fan of. There's a bunch of profanity in it, which I love. But really what it boils down to is the relationships between the friends and how tense it gets when it comes to these games that they have to play. Like, for example, one is they have to cross a beam and 2 water tanks. It's just a beam between them, and they have to cross it at night and get to the other side, which gives you points. These accumulating points lead to you winning a lump sum of money. And it turns people against each other, man. And the judges that run the game are anonymous, so you never know who is who's creating the games that you have to play, or tracking your behavior, or finding out your fears for a trap that you might get put into. It's really cool, man. Panic's really good.
I've been seeing the like pop-ups, like the
like falling sort of.
Yeah. Like it's just like everywhere I go, it's like on the social media. I feel like it's definitely they've been promoting the hell out of that show.
Yeah. I turned on the first episode. I was like, Aaron, I'm telling you, I think you'll like this. And she's like, we'll see. And then second episode, she's like, let's watch the third. Let's watch the fourth. We've just been kind of watching it slowly, but watching it. Okay. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is something that's kind of near and dear to me, but kind of hasn't been in my recent years. And I'm starting to reacquaint myself. And sometimes they're just movies that you don't watch as frequently, not because they're bad, just because maybe in between place where you can't find them on like a streaming service or something like that. And I picked up some digital copies through iTunes of the 4K restores of Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay.
Man, these things are not only gorgeous, I'm like getting into spatial audio and stuff like that. The mix is better. I don't remember this movie looking this good. I mean, that's one of the things that you'll notice kind of right up front is the color palette is just, the gold that you remember from the movie that pops a little more. You can see the insignias in the coins now. It's like things you didn't even think you would even pay attention to. You can now see in the 4K transfer. Nice. I've only watched the first, and I'm slowly starting to get through them. I think Aaron and I are going to watch the second one probably tomorrow. But if you guys want something that's like a little something old but new at the same time, that Indiana Jones restore is incredible. You can get it on any of the PVOD services, or you can get the physical disc. You can get the Blu-ray if you have a system that plays it, or a Blu-ray player. But this is it. If you like, I was really hesitant about. I'm like, this 4K upgrades of all these movies. Like, there's one of Scott Pilgrim coming out later on.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks. I was like not really excited about it. I saw Indiana Jones and I'm like, if Indiana Jones can look like that, what the hell is Scott Pilgrim going to look and sound like? So get into it, man. Check those things out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what have you guys been watching?
I went through the season of Hacks, Gene Smart's.
So you've been watching it?
Yeah, I've been.
What'd you think?
Yeah,
what'd you think?
It's great. Oh man, yeah. It's great. Yeah, I'm glad they just announced, I think yesterday or today, that they're doing a second season of it. So that's good. Yeah, she's great, man. And
she's good.
I don't know the other lead actress.
I'm really heard her.
She's also great.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Yeah, Gene Smart's just having a moment. Like,
yeah, man.
Well, even over the last year. I mean, if you include Watchmen,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
or the last year and change. Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, it's like, and it seems like it's an HBO. HBO loves her at the moment, so maybe that's a.
Oh my God!
She's just getting to that sweet spot where you can get cast in some of these character roles, and she's got the chops to carry off the comic parts and the kind of dramatic undercurrent too. I watched Lisey's story on Apple Plus. Did anybody else watch that?
Oh man,
no, I haven't watched it.
Tell me how.
Please.
I mean, tell me how bad that is.
I mean, I felt like it was bad. I mean, I don't like to say good, bad,
Everybody has said that to me.
But it's weird. It's weird. It's weird that it's like you'd like.
Wait, real quick though. Is it weird though?
It's weird. It's weird.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Got it. Thanks.
Let me be clear about this. It's weird. No, but I mean,
I'm glad you cleared that up.
I'm puzzling with it because it's the elements that are involved in this. You've got Joan Allen. You've got what's her Jennifer Jason Leigh. You've got the lead
Julianne Moore, isn't it?
Julianne Moore, yes. But it's all these people. But I mean, it's like these actresses that are all kind of on fire. You're used to them being great and stuff. Even Clive Owen is in it, and he's usually very solid. And Stephen King, who doesn't usually do a lot of like he usually has a hands-off attitude to the adaptations of his stuff. So this is just like the pedigree of it is so good, and HBO, not HBO, but Apple TV Plus's production values are insane. So
yeah,
it's just unfortunate that it couldn't be something really special. And it's interesting enough on a storyline level and just what it is that I would say I'm intrigued to watch the next episode. But it's kind of like the way I used to feel when I was when I used to read a lot of comic books, and I would pick up the first issue of something and I'd be like, I don't know. It's like, I'm going to give this a second issue to see if at the end of that, I have a sense of like what the hook, what it means to give it a chance to get its hooks in me. But at the end of 1 hour, it does not feel like it's up to the usual sort of, we talk about this sometimes, but it doesn't feel like prestige television the way that at the end of that first hour, you should be clamoring for the next part instead of going like, what? That's the end of the first hour? Okay. You know, like it just felt, it felt like such a weird misfire that's why I kept saying it's weird, because it just, you would not think, even with the story, even when it's unfolding in front of you, you're thinking, surely this is better than this. Like, sure, even this story seems like it could be better. I'll give you one quick reason why it's so odd. It's like, there's no groundedness in it. You're dealing with a crazy situation that's being filmically depicted in a kind of arty way, and it's a woman who's unstable and having moments where she can't tell reality from fantasy, and the ghost of her husband is appearing to her and showing her flashbacks from her life. But those flashbacks from her life seem like they're being warped around some kind of weird supernatural presence, but that may be all in her mind, but it may be a real presence. And you're like, what's the normal here? Like, what, you know what I mean? It'd be like if you watched a horror movie and there never was a moment of someone just like walking around their house being creeped out. If it just went straight to like, they're in some kind of hell dimension or something. I mean, this isn't quite that wild, but it is like, I found it to be not confusing in that good engrossing way, but confusing like they just, like just confusing in a poorly made way. I hate to say, maybe I'm wrong. I want someone to tell me, okay, no, it gets better, or you're missing something. But I felt totally, it had that feeling of like, did I miss 10 minutes of this? And that would have given any of this context. Like the characters just weren't landing, the scenes, everything felt like it was part of a dream or something. And it just, too bad.
Damn. I'm probably going to still watch it because I'm just so curious now, because I've heard so many people that have basically said what you said. But yeah, it's a bummer because that should have been really good. I did think of another one that I did watch the other day that I forgot to mention. I don't know if Ronald mentioned it on a prior episode, but I feel like maybe he did. But Hulu has a new movie called Plan B.
Yes, I did. I love that
Natalie
movie.
Morales. Yeah, that movie's great. I would highly recommend checking that out. Just a really, really tight, funny script. I mean, the two leads, their chemistry is off the charts. Like, that's really what makes the movie work. But what makes it a little unique, I think, is just a super tight, funny script. It's like, the movie's lean, it's just moves really fast. It's like an hour, 45 minutes, but it moves so fast, but just a great idea for a movie. Which is, basically this girl is just trying to find a Plan B pill in South Dakota, where there's all these like morality things where they can or cannot give them out from a pharmacy. And it's just like one of those adventure movies of two best friends trying to find a way to make this work so they can get this pill after, basically she has sex with someone and the condom stays inside of her and falls out when she goes to the, that scene is funny. That scene is so funny.
It is
when she realizes that happened. But I don't know. I remember you mentioned it, but I saw a bunch of people on my timeline on Twitter that's just kind of raving about it, and it's great. I mean, if you have Hulu, it's one of the better movies I've seen so far this year, especially comedies and just like the buddy adventure, not road trip, but whatever, that kind of comedy. Couldn't recommend it enough. It's almost guaranteed that you like it if you like those kinds of movies. But Plan B was great. I loved it. Yeah. That's it for me. I don't got anything else. Again, next week we're gonna be trying to go through we'll get our ducks in a row with what's going on with Tribeca. It starts, basically the night that we're recording this goes for a week or so. And we've been given access to some of the at-home titles that they're doing as a part of their programming, much like the other festivals did. For those that can't come, which is great that they're doing that. It's a new thing that hopefully all the festivals do that in some capacity. Sure. Even beyond the pandemic times that we're in right now, still, or hopefully on the back end of. But so yeah, next week we'll kind of go through some movies, mostly probably movies that our listeners have probably never heard of, but that's great because hopefully we can talk about them and you can maybe hear about, learn about, become interested in some movies that maybe you wouldn't have heard of otherwise. And thanks Tribeca for hooking us up with that, and look forward to doing that next week for sure. Also, this week we're going to be starting back up with our Marvel Schmarvel series, which is our YouTube series that we do. It's video only. If you find Movie Schmovie on YouTube, basically when there's a Disney Plus series, or even when Hulu had MODOK, or a Marvel movie coming out in theaters or on Disney Plus, we'll kind of get that spinning up and kind of go through the episodes week by week. This week we're kind of getting back into action because Loki started on Disney Plus. So that episode is already out. So if you want to check that on YouTube, please find us there and subscribe and kind of hit that bell so you get notifications as those kind of recaps, reviews drop on a weekly basis for the next, I guess, month or two. And then as always, you can go to movieschmovie.com to find past episodes. You can listen right from that landing page or link to whatever podcast platform you prefer to listen to podcasts on. Everything's there in one nice place, and it's a great place to tell your friends about. If you want to tell them about Movie Schmovie, that'd be great too. Do you guys have anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
I think I'm good.
All right, man. Good seeing you guys. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.